How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Before we get started, I just wanted to fill you in on a trip to Egypt this fall that my friends Michael Collins, aka the Wandering Wolf, and the Forbidden Frontier crew, such as Gary from Neurotic, X-Ray Girl, Quarterblack Garrett, and Adam Krigler, in November. The dates are November 17th to the 23rd, and it'll be visiting sites such as the pyramids, the Sphinx, Luxor, Valley of the Kings, Karnak Temple, among many others. The price for the trip is $3,500. And that includes hotels, all in country transportation, but that does not include any transportation to and from Egypt. If you're interested in going, I will drop a link in the description, but if you are interested in going, you may want to hurry up because they are selling out fast. So today I'm going to be talking about some of the men that are responsible for either discovering or finding out of the ancient mining in the QAnon Isle Royale. Some of them I'll go into great detail as much as I can. Others will just be sort of a footnote, just noting any discoveries or areas or information they came along to lead to more discoveries of these areas. The first known account of copper country in Michigan was written in Paris in 1636 by Lagarde. Writing of what now is the Upper Peninsula, he said, "There are mines of copper which may be profitable. If there were inhabitants and workmen who would labor faithfully, there is a mine of copper from which Truchement Roussel showed me an ingot." In a French publication in 1666-1667, the following is found. "The natives respect this lake and its divinity and its magnitude, for it is 200 leagues long and 80 wide, on account of its goodness of furnishing them fish, which nourish all of those people, but there is little game. There are often beneath the water pieces of copper, all formed in the weight of 10 to 20 pounds. I have seen them many times in the hands of the natives. When they are superstitious, they keep them as so many divinities, or as presents from the gods beneath the waters, who have given them as pledges in good fortune." Now, as I said in an earlier video, the more modern Anishinaabe tribes didn't use copper so much for tools as their predecessors had, but they use them as religious items, things that they could speak to their gods, their great spirits through. And more of on the lines of decoration or beads, but they didn't use them as weapons and tools anymore. They were back to using flint arrowheads. Eventually that switched over to iron and steel when European contact had come through. Credit can be given to many of the French explorers and trappers that had come across the UP, many of them unnamed, but some of them also religious missionaries like Father Barraga, Marquette. Most credit for the discovery of the Upper Peninsula itself is given to Samuel de Champlain or even Jacques Cartier, but evidence has shown that there were Europeans in the area trading with the natives in the late 1400s, long before these men had made their way across the Great Lakes region. The people that were here trading were merchants of the Basque provinces. Now, these are just some of the men that did the first earlier explorations of the Upper Peninsula. But this next man I'm going to introduce you to actually made the first initial discovery, and well, maybe not first discovery, but he had realized what these ancient pits were, and that man is Samuel O. Knapp. Samuel Knapp was born in Royalton, Virginia on April 21st, 1816. As a young man, he had worked in a wool factory, and by the age of 18, he was put in charge of and became the superintendent of this wool factory. By age 28, his health had been affected severely by the years in the wool factory, and with the discovery of copper in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, he went north. In 1848, working as the superintendent for the Minnesota mine, Samuel Knapp made a discovery that would change everything. Now, Knapp never made any first-hand accounts of his discoveries, but many different second-hand accounts or third-hand accounts of the story are generally identical. Some details are slightly different, but the overall story is the same. There are also some others throughout the years who have taken Knapp's story and made it their own, so they could have credit for these discoveries. And what I'm going to do is read this rendition of this story. It was written on June 14th, 1848 by a correspondent of the Buffalo Express. And it says, "Mr. Knapp of the Vulcan Mining Company has lately made some very singular discoveries here in working one of the veins which he lately found. He worked into an old cave which has been excavated centuries ago. This led them to look for other works of the same sort, and they have found a number of sinks in the earth which they have traced a long distance. By digging into those sinks they find them to have been made by the hand of men. It appears that the ancient miners went on a different principle from what they do at the present time. The greatest depth yet found in these holes is 30 feet. After getting down to a certain depth, they drifted along the vein, making an open cut. These cuts have been filled nearly to a level by the accumulation of soil, and we find trees of the largest growth standing in its gutter. And also find trees of a very large growth have grown up and died, and decayed many years since. In the same place there are now standing trees over 300 years old growth. Last week they dug down into a new place, about 12 feet below the surface, found a mass of copper that will weigh 8 to 10 tons. This mass was buried in ashes, and it appears that they could not handle it and had no means of cutting it, and probably built fire to melt or separate the rock from it, which might have been done by heating and then dashing on cold water. This piece of copper is as pure and clean as a new cent. Upper surface has been pounded clear and smooth. And as I said, that is just one of the many renditions of the exact same story, but that one is the simplest and easiest that I've been able to find out of them all to kind of comprehend with only the details you really need to know on it. And if you're interested in knowing who tried to take credit for finding these original mine pits, William Spalding had claimed he did, and it was is found in a memoir he had written 53 years after the fact. And because there were no other first-hand accounts from Samuel O. Knapp, some people believed it, but he also claimed to have been the first discoverer of traces of ancient copper mining in Cook County, Minnesota as well, which that was also actually done by someone else. So this show is apparently a history of trying to take credit for other people's work. The next gentleman I wanted to speak about is Charles Whittlesey. As I've been doing my research on Whittlesey, he's actually a pretty interesting character and had actually done a lot more than I'd even known. And this quick little excerpt I'm going to read comes from the book Prehistoric Copper Mining in Michigan, the 19th Century Discovery of Ancient Diggings in the Keweenaw Peninsula and Isle Royale by John R. Halsey. It's a pretty interesting book. It's half the book is talking about everything that he's done in research, and the other half of the book is basically bibliographies and charts and stuff like that. So I'll definitely put a link in the description for this one. It's also a really neat book to have in your collection if you're interested in this stuff. But he states, without a doubt, outside of Samuel O. Knapp, Charles Whittlesey is one of the most important figures in the story of the ancient diggings. Soldier, engineer, lawyer, geologist, artist, archaeologist, author, historian, and museum founder. The range of his knowledge and experiences is unparalleled. He fought in the Black Hawk War and the Civil War. Without his book, Ancient Mining on the Shores of Lake Superior, published in 1863, but actually completed in 1856, our knowledge of ancient mining activities would be nothing short of pathetic. Whittlesey was born on October 4th, 1808, in Southington, Connecticut. In the late 1830s, Whittlesey helped perform the first survey of Ohio's rocks and minerals. During his fieldwork, he began studying the many earthworks he encountered. He has written about 200 books and articles. Whittlesey had studied natural sciences at West Point Military Academy in New York. After graduating in 1831, he was assigned to Fort Howard in Green Bay, Wisconsin. While fighting the Black Hawk War against the Sauk and Fox Indians, Whittlesey saw the copper country for the first time. And when the Civil War broke out in 1861, he enlisted with the Union Army. He had served as an escort for then-President Abraham Lincoln, was the assistant quartermaster for Ohio troops, engineered the defenses for Cincinnati, and fought at the battles of Shiloh and Fort Donelson. He retired from the military after a year due to the death of his wife, Mary. Whittlesey also has done an extensive amount of work on the mound builders in the Ohio region. Throughout the years, Whittlesey had worked archaeological sites and surveys and geological sites and surveys along Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio, and had published over 200 books and articles, and also has many of his papers in the Smithsonian. His detailed examination extended along the Copper Range from the extreme east of Keweenaw Point and Ontonagon, through the Porcupine Mountains to the Montreal River, and thence to Long Lake in Wisconsin, which is a distance of 200 miles. In 1849, 1850, and 1858, he explored the valley of Menominee River from its mouth to the Brule. He was also the first geologist to explore South Range. The Wisconsin Geological Survey says this range was first observed by him, that he many years ago drew attention to its promise of merchantable ores, which are now extensively developed from the Wasita to the Commonwealth mines and several miles beyond. Whittlesey was an original member of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, an old and valued member of the American Antiquarian Society, and an honorary member of the Ohio State Archaeological and Historical Society. Whittlesey passed away in Cleveland, Ohio on October 18th, 1886. Samuel Knapp and George Whittlesey are two of the most important people when it comes to the ancient copper mining discoveries in the Upper Peninsula. Without Knapp actually digging down the 27 feet in the original pit that he found and discovering the giant piece of copper, it may not have ever been known for much longer after that these sites were of significance. And without Whittlesey's geological and archaeological expertise, many of these sites, including a lot of the mountains in Ohio and Wisconsin, would have never been surveyed or discovered. They would have just been probably, as most of them were, mowed down into farmland. There are many other men and women that helped pioneer this land, but I felt that these two men were the most important in context of the ancient mining in Upper Peninsula. I want to thank you for watching today's video. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that you'd be interested in me talking about or going to visit in the Upper Peninsula area here. I'd love to hear what anyone has to say. If you have anyone in your family or friends that are interested in this kind of stuff, send them over here. Let them decide if they like it or not, or if they have any other ideas of their own. Once again, I want to thank you for watching. You have a great week, and we'll see you next time.